I'm working on installing a Qlik Sense server with a standalone installation of PostgreSQL, and I wanted to capture this process of installing and configuring a standalone installation of PostgreSQL server that can be used by Qlik Sense. So I started with downloading the installation of the installation file for PostgreSQL. So I'm not going to go through that process, but you would start by going to this link, and I'll have that in the description. Clicking this, download the installer link, and then just grabbing a version, whichever one that you would prefer to use for your Qlik Sense server. I'm going to be using this version 16.9, but which is I believe the highest supported version of PostgreSQL at the moment. But you can, obviously select whichever one you would want to go with. So I've downloaded the file. Here it is. So let's go ahead and get PostgreSQL installed. That's the very first step. Get the PostgreSQL actually installed. And this installation process is fairly simple. It essentially consists of just clicking the next button. So let's go ahead and do that. So next, the installation directory, I'm going to stick with the default. Almost always choose the default. Actually, always. I always have in the past chosen. I haven't had the need to change that. So I'm going to stick with the default one. I'll install all of the options here. Stack Builder, you may skip that one. But obviously we'll need the PostgreSQL server. pgadmin is a useful tool to use, and we do need the command line tools to do things like backup and upgrade PostgreSQL down the road. So let's go ahead and click next there. Data directory, again, I'm just going to choose the default one. It's in program files folder on a C drive. And here, let's create a password for the Postgres super user. This is going to be the main user that's going to be used to administer PostgreSQL server. So make sure to choose a strong password for that one. Click next. So port number for Qlik Sense, the default / recommended is port 4432, but you can also use 5432. I recommend using 4432 because pretty much every documentation out there that deals with PostgreSQL for Qlik Sense references the port number 4432, so just to avoid any confusion and not needing to take extra step to find the port number on which your PostgreSQL server is running, I just recommend sticking with the default port 4432 for Qlik Sense. Locale, same, I'm going to use my default one, which is US, but you can, again, recommend sticking with the default unless you have a reason to switch, otherwise click next. So there's a summary. Here's all of the it just tells you, here's what you have selected. Are you okay with these selections? And I'm okay with them, so I'm just going to go ahead and click next. And finally, click next to actually begin the installation. So this installation is pretty quick, but this is really all there is to get PostgreSQL installed. Like I said, it's essentially just clicking through all of the options and until you get to this point where you install where PostgreSQL gets installed. So I'm going to pause the video here and then come back once PostgreSQL is actually done installing. All right, so there we go. It finished installing. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the Stack Builder because I don't need to do anything there, and just go ahead and click Finish. The next thing we'll need to do is add the path to PostgreSQL binary folder to the path system environment variable. So we'll need to do that because there's going to be PostgreSQL server is going to be used to do things like we'll need to back it up, we'll need to administer it, and in order to do those things, we'll need to reference these binaries that come packaged with a PostgreSQL server. So in order to not reference the path to these binaries every time we have to run a command, it's best practice in order. We'll simplify our life, our admin life, by simply adding the path to this binary folder to the path environment variable. So I'm going to go ahead to the default installation directory, or where the PostgreSQL server was installed. For me, that's on my C drive, program files, PostgreSQL server 16. That's the version of the server that was installed. And here's the binary folder that contains all of these things that will be that are used to do things like backup and administer and do a whole bunch of other awesome things on PostgreSQL. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this address and then go to the this PC section, click on the system properties. Actually, there's a faster way to do it. Let's go to the start menu and type in environment. And there it is. So click this, edit the system environment variables, which will bring this window. And in here, click on this environment variables button. Now there's two areas where this path variables are available. This one is a user variable, and this is a system variable. So this one is accessible for all users of the computer, and this one is just for the user that you're logged in with. So we want to add the path to the binaries for the system variable. So go ahead and select the path variable and then click the edit button, and then click the new button and go ahead and paste the address to the binaries folder, and hit enter, and then just click OK to close all of these windows. So that's all there's to it. Now, what we have now is essentially an empty PostgreSQL server. We can go ahead and open it up and take a look at it. In the PostgreSQL folder, there's this pgadmin application, which is a graphical user interface that we can use to explore the contents of the PostgreSQL server. See the databases, see the users and roles that are available on the PostgreSQL server. So let's go ahead and expand this servers item, and it's going to ask you to enter the password for the Postgres user, the one that we used during the installation. So I'll go ahead and paste it there and click OK. Now notice my database says it's Qlik Sense. This is because I've already done this process in the past, and I have named this database as Qlik Sense. Yours will likely just be named PostgreSQL 16 or 15, or just PostgreSQL and a version number. And you can easily rename that by just right-clicking the database and then clicking properties and then setting the name and a description here if you want. But that's what's going to happen. But as we if you open the database at this or this PostgreSQL server at this point, all you'll see is one database, Postgres, the default database, and these set of groups and a single user. Now that's not enough for Qlik Sense. What Qlik Sense is going to need is an additional user and 4 databases that it can use to write its data to. That's what we're going to do next. Now, what I have here is a script, and I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to explain or show the contents of it and explain how it works. There's actually 2 scripts. One is a SQL script and the other one is a PowerShell script. I'm going to run the PowerShell script, which will create the needed user and the databases, and I'll actually show this side by side so we can see how the whole thing is happening right here. So I'll open up a PowerShell window where this config PostgreSQL for Qlik Sense script is located. And there it is. And I'm just going to run that script, this config PostgreSQL for QS. And if you don't know, the way to run the PowerShell is just do this / and then the name of the file that you want to run and hit enter. And that's done. It's as simple as that. And if I refresh the user list right now, I have this Qlik Sense repository user created, and same thing with the databases. Here's the 4 new databases that Qlik Sense will need to get this to install Qlik Sense, or the Qlik Sense will need in order to use this PostgreSQL server. Now, if you expand the one of these databases, QSR, that's the main one, and you look at the public schema, you'll notice that there's no tables here. That's okay. That's going to be all created during the installation of Qlik Sense. So as you install Qlik Sense, it will write all of the tables and all of the records and all of the configurations that belong in these databases. But as far as configuring PostgreSQL, this is it. Now, that's all there's to it. Now let's take a look at the actual script. What has happened? How did it actually get this server configured so fast? I'm gonna go ahead and open the PowerShell script first, because that's the main one. That's the one that actually ran the process, and then we'll take a look at the SQL script that was used by PostgreSQL to create those databases and the user. So the PowerShell script, it's not too complicated. It has 5 sections. There we go. And let's take a look at what it's doing. So there's 2 functions. One is the new directory function. This one is being used to create a directory. And that's all it's doing. Really, there's just one function, one call in here. The if statement is there to just check if that directory already exists. And if it is, it doesn't do anything. But if the directory doesn't exist, it will create it. I'll let you know what that directory is and why we need to create it. The next the next function is related to the new directory function. It's called remove pgpass file. Again, I've named it this way. You can name it whatever you want if you don't like that name. But what this function is doing is removing an item that was created within this directory that this new directory function creates. Again, it's confusing, I know, but it's going to make sense later on. Just know that we have 2 functions. One creates a directory, one deletes a file. And let's jump to the next section. So here we have basic configurations, right? We have the port number that your PostgreSQL server is running on. This was specified during the installation. It's 4432 for me. It matches what I've specified during installation. If you've used a different port, you would change this to, whatever port you were using. The name of the super user that can be used to execute and create the databases and the user needed for Qlik Sense to use the PostgreSQL server. And then couple passwords. So one password is for this new role that will be created, this Qlik Sense repository. All right, so that's one password. And the second password, the variable, is for this Postgres super user account. Now I have the passwords stored in the credential manager. So if I bring up my credential manager, you'll see that there is this QS repo role password. There it is. and then there's PostgreSQL super user password. There it is. And I'm using this get secret modules, their PowerShell modules, to retrieve these passwords from Credential Manager. If you don't have that set up, what you can do is simply delete this line and hard code the password for the new role that's going to be created, as well as for your super user account. Obviously, that's not very secure. You'll have your passwords visible in plain text, so I don't recommend keeping this file around with the passwords displayed in plain text for too long, but that's what's happening here. We're just specifying basic information about the PostgreSQL and the users that will be the user that will be created, and the user and the password for the Postgres super user account. So next thing is we are creating this pgpass file. So why are we doing that? The reason why we're doing it is because this PSQL binary that we're going to be running requires us to enter the password in order to access PostgreSQL server and do things like creating users and databases. You know, you can't just go ahead and create users and databases within your PostgreSQL server without any credential protection. So if I go ahead and let me show you more specifically. Let's go ahead and open up that binary folder again, and notice that there is this PSQL. That's the guy. Now you can actually run it in the command prompt. So if I do PSQL and I do port 4432 and username Postgres, it's going to ask me for password, which is kind of a showstopper. I mean, this is good. It won't let you use or access PostgreSQL without providing a password for the username you've selected. That's a great security feature, but it's kind of a showstopper for the automation aspect of it. So in other words, if I don't provide this password, I won't be able to actually run the script that needs to run in order to create those roles and databases. The way to get around that around the need to enter a password, is to create a file called pgpass.conf and store it in this app data PostgreSQL folder. So let me actually bring up this directory. You can access it by doing the %, appdata, and another %. There it is. So within this directory, initially you're not going to have this PostgreSQL folder, but it's going to be created by this script. And inside it, you will have the pgpass file that's going to contain a single line of text, which is the localhost, the port number, the username, which is going to be the Postgres, and the password of the Postgres super user account. When this pgpass.conf file is created within this directory, it tells PostgreSQL that it can use the credentials that are available there for the user that was provided. So like we're using Postgres account we've created and stored the password for the Postgres account in that directory, and PostgreSQL then goes, okay, you want me to use the Postgres account? Do I have the password for that account in this pgpass.conf file? I do. Let me go ahead and use it, and that way it goes through and executes the PSQL binary without needing to provide that password. You can read up more on that. So if you go PostgreSQL pgpass.conf file. PostgreSQL has the documentation on this file, and like I said, here's the I guess 5 items that would need to be provided in that file. And as the documentation says, it's just a file that you can use to semi-safely store passwords for your users that you use to connect and execute these binaries, periodically. Now, this is, I mentioned semi-safe, semi-secure because although this PostgreSQL file is located within the user folder, so look at I'm logged on to my server Qlik Sense account, and within that user's account, I have the app data and roaming and PostgreSQL file folder, which means that this folder is only accessible by this user. No other users on the server can access this folder. So in that sense, it's kind of secure, but it's not very secure in the sense that there's a password in that inside that config file that is displayed in plain text. So even though no other users are able to access this file, if you have multiple people who are able to log in to your server using this service account, or server admins, which have access to every folder, will be able to still access the files or the contents of this folder and see the file. So what this script is doing, kind of tying it back, is it creates that pgpass file so that the PSQL command will be able to run and execute this SQL script, the second one that we saw in this folder, that actually does the work of creating the user and creating the databases without asking for password. Now, if this command that is, let's actually take a look at the command itself. It's PSQL that tells PowerShell run this binary, and it will know which binary to run because it will reference that path system variable and look through to see, is there anything that is known as the PSQL within the directories that are specified there. And we will be able to find that binary and so it will use that binary to run this code. Now, this binary needs a couple of parameters, couple of common parameters. So the port number is the first one. So this one is going to use the port number variable that was specified here, the username that we will be using to connect to PostgreSQL. Again, that's going to be pulling from here. And then we're giving it the file that we want this command to run. And that is the config PostgreSQL for Qlik Sense SQL file, which is this guy right here. We'll take a look at what's inside it. Well, let's actually take a quick glance at it. It's very, if you're familiar with, let me bring it up, with this process, Qlik Sense or Qlik actually has documentations. Let me show them to you. That has this script in here. So if you go to Qlik's documentation, I'll link that. I'll include the link to this documentation in the description. But if you scroll down to here, you'll see that there's this SQL script. There's actually 2 of them, and they're pretty much the same, which is kind of confusing. But yeah, it's the same script. One just includes extra steps for creating the databases. So this one has create database commands. This one doesn't. This one just goes straight to for creating a role. But anyway, this is, if you look at this script, that's the one I'm using. That's here. It creates the roles, it creates the databases, and sets the owner, the owner of the created databases to be the Qlik Sense repository, and then it uses the it sets the connect and temp tables permissions for all of the users. It allows create functionality. So it's essentially setting up, it's creating the user and setting up the users' databases and setting up the permissions for those users and databases as Qlik recommends we do. So that's all that this portion of the command is doing. The variable is the very last piece here, and what it's doing is we're passing a password that we would like this new Qlik Sense repository account to use. So if you look at this the SQL script, notice that there's this new role PW with the colon or semicolon, colon, 2 dots in a horizontal orientation, followed by a string of text. This string of text is actually saying I'm going to use the variable name that was passed in the PSQL command. So this is very confusing, but it's essentially I'm saying, so instead of me hard coding the password for the Qlik Sense repository user in the script file, which you can do, but again, plain text, not recommended. Instead of hard coding the password, I'm just passing it through the command, and I'm pulling that password from the credential manager. So that is much more secure. You can't really see the password, yet it is being used and securely assigned in here. So that's what's happening here. It's a simple command. We specify the port number, username that we want to use, which script we would want to run, and pass a variable with the password that the script can use to set the password for the user. Then we have this small if statement. It's here simply to catch instances when this command doesn't run successfully, and because we do want something to happen when if that happens. If the command fails, the number one thing we want to do is remove this pgpass file. Again, remember, we've created it earlier in the script, and it contains the password of the super user account. So that file should be deleted once this script finishes running. So the lifespan of that pgpass file is very short. It's created when this script is executed. The PSQL command is using it to avoid you needing to provide the password, and once the PSQL command finishes running, that file is deleted. So plain, clean, minimal exposure of the PostgreSQL super user account on the system. Now, notice this command, this function is executed twice. It's executed here if there's going to be something, if there's an error that's going to happen when PSQL command is executing. But if the PSQL command is executed successfully, we still want to delete that file because, again, plain text password to super user account, never a good thing to have on your drive. So, and that's what's happening there. So it's a lot of information, but really all it is you specify the information that will need to be used by the PSQL command, which is the port number, the user, and a couple of passwords. Then you have a section that's creating the pgpass pgpass.conf file that's going to contain the passwords of your super user account, so that PSQL command is not going to prompt you for passwords. Once the PSQL command runs and creates the user, creates the databases, configures the databases, it goes ahead and cleans up and deletes that pgpass file. So that is all that's happening there. I know, again, a lot, but you know, as you have seen, all that's needed to be done there is we simply run this command. You know, we install PostgreSQL, we add the path to the binary folder, and we run the script, and your PostgreSQL server, a standalone PostgreSQL server, is ready for Qlik Sense. So that's all there's to it. I hope you found this useful. I wanted to share that because whenever I saw that these documentations that Qlik put together, they're kind of long and sort of confusing, specifically this part right here, and the presence of the second script, which is kind of the same. And the whole idea of they're mentioning, you know, you run this PSQL script or the command, and again, you can see that here's your host, your user, Postgres, your port number, the file, exact same parameters that I've shown, that I've used in the PowerShell script, which I've shown in this video, but without somebody actually showing. I found, you know, how to run this thing. I found it to be confusing, so I wanted to create a video and demonstrate this, and so how this works, and so it would be pretty clear, because it really is not anything complicated. Install Qlik Sense or install PostgreSQL, add the path to the binary, and run the script. That's all there's to it. Again, hope it helps. Let me know if there's anything else that you want me to show you in the space of Qlik Sense server administration, and I'll be happy to create another video for you on that topic.